Rabbi Yoina Shara Tshuva discusses different aspects of Tshuva, and I'd like to address, I think, the most pitiful issue that each of us face as Elul comes upon us. Where have we been since last year? It was only a year ago that we were doing Tshuva, and we were sure this year is going to be the year. And somehow it went from Reishis Hashana, the year, to Reishis Shana, was just another year like the last year. And the Rabbi Yoina answers this question with the slippery slope. We fall into a pattern of a slippery slope. I would like to discuss the slippery slope. And I'm going to start off with a later sentence in the same Ikra Shloshosar. Hevizar b'mitzvah kala k'vachamura. One should be careful with a mitzvah kala as a chomer mitzvah. Shemitzvah gereres mitzvah, v'avera gereres avera, v'sfar mitzvah mitzvah, v'schar avera avera. One thing leads to another, and it doesn't take long until we find ourselves in a place that we couldn't have imagined. A person comes to Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, he feels cleansed, and he's starting off on a new sheet, fresh, clean slate. And he does one small Avera. Just one small Avera. What's the big deal of one small Avera? I remember when I was in high school, and I use this as an example. I know teachers, when they mark, they give extra credit. An extra credit, some teachers let you get 100 plus. Some teachers only let you get with that extra credit 100. And this teacher, his shita was as follows. The extra credit can only upgrade your grade. If you answered every question that's mandatory 100% right, you can get 100. If you answered one question wrong, even if you did all the extra credit, you will only get a 99. You're not perfect. If you answered 10 out of 10 questions right, you get 100. If you answered 11 out of 12 right, you get only a 99. And the students are fighting over this point. What's the point? What's the difference? Why do we fight so much? From a 99 to 100, we don't have this fight over 93 to 94, over 97 to 98. Why do we fight over the point between 99 and 100? Shleimus. 100 is shleimus. 99.9 is not shleimus. A person does an Aveira Kala, he's already not a Shalom. to be wonderful, you could be great, but you're not a sholem. Once a person is not a sholem, so one thing leads to another. And the person is sakana of the worst. Chazal say, Kol hakoyes ki'ilu oved avodah zarah. Why is Kol hakoyes ki'ilu oved avodah zarah? The pashut pshat is, why do I get mad at you? Because you did something to me. If the bookcase fell on my finger, should I hit the bookcase back? What's it going to help? What's a bookcase? The soda machine took your quarter, your dollar, your $5, I don't know what we're up to exactly. It took your money and you kick it, you beat it. Who are you hurting? In the olden times, you felt that somehow you can kick the change out and maybe get back your money. But nowadays, it's just an act of frustration, futile. One really looks silly. Nobody could hurt you if you don't deserve it. That person is a shliach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So if I am mad at you, that means that I believe that you can harm me. And you willfully harmed me. If I would be a Baal B'tochen, I would understand everything comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're just a stick. You're just a bookcase. You're just a soda machine. Nothing personal. That's all you are. No reason to get annoyed. That's avodah zarah. There's somebody else out there that has control beside HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the pashut of pshat in the Maimer Chazal. However, I think that the pshat in Chazal is much simpler than that. Though that is a simple pashut pshat. So I got mad. So what happened? A change of attitude happened. Something great happened. Even if there was no Maisa, you didn't kick, not the soda machine, not the books, not anybody. But there's an attitude that changed. And when that attitude changes, the world starts to look totally different. The Chalkover Rebbe was in a convalescent retreat together with the Briskerov. And the Briskerov asked him, Rebbe, what did you darshan in Shul on Shabbos? So he tells the Briskerov was Parshas Vayishlach. And he said, Yaakov Avinu was by Lavan Harosha for 20 years. In Lavan Garti, B'tayag Mitzvah Shamarti. Rashi says, we all are subject to impressions about from the environment that we live in. How did Yaakov Avinu overcome? And the Chalkover Rebbe said, the answer was a mashal. It was this farmer, a simple fellow, and he would work the field, feed the cows, the chores of the man in the farm. And the wife would run the kitchen. And he would come home after a long day's work, and he saw his wife tired from all of her work, serving supper and then washing the dishes. And he says, my dear wife, you work so hard. Why bother washing all these dishes? We'll just all sit around the pot and eat straight out of the pot. What do you need dishes for? So she looks at her husband and says, what are you, crazy? You can't eat out of the pot. And all of us stand around the pot and eat out of the pot. So he says, why not? I'm in the barn and I watch all the cows and they all eat out of the pot together. Why can't we do just like them? They seem pretty happy. And his wife says to him, there's something the matter with you. What do we have to do with how cows eat? We're human beings. Send the choker wherever. In love and gati v'tayeg mitzvah shamarti. What's the trick? Vayehili shor v'chamor. I considered Lavan a shor v'chamor. You don't learn from a shor v'chamor. You don't take lessons from a shor v'chamor. The brisker of chuckled at this wonderful drash, and he said, a very good pshat, but that's not Pashup pshat in the pasuk. However, I heard B'Shem the Briskerov that he said almost the same thing in this week's parsha. Eitz v'even kesef v'zov asher imah. V'atiru eshikutzehem. You'll see the avodah zaras of the goyim, and they're despicable. Gluleihem. Eitz v'even kesef v'zov asher imah. If you don't obliterate them, and you leave them around, as they say, they start to grow on you. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I don't think that there's a better example of this than style of clothing. Clothing comes into style, whether it's pants with holes in them, multicolored, faded, baggy, tight, whatever it is. The first guy walks in and you think to yourself, aren't you embarrassed to be dressed like that? It only takes 2 years that you're not embarrassed if you're not dressed like that. It grows on you. The attitude grows on you. The actions that you do grow on you. And the person who is a kason, and he starts to feel that he's in charge, is on a slippery slope. The first reason, small aver, it's only a small aver. What does it mean, a small aver? I only made a small hole in the balloon. What's all the noise about? Only a small hole. If the king says, I want you to put the fork down on a 37-degree angle, and you put it down on a 39-degree angle, and the king says, off with your head. What are you so upset about? Only 2 degrees. That's ridiculous. Anybody who thinks like that doesn't understand what a king is. A fraction of a degree is treasonous. Says Rabbi Yaina, Avera Kala v'Chamura, Avo Yabed Ligdulas Mishihiz Oleho. It's not a question how big the Aveira is, how small the Aveira is. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told you, don't do it. After that, there's no issue of big or small. Ki hayetzer sholed ba'aveiros hakalos v'ulai zo siba lismas mibahem. To get you into the habit. V'oz yechoshev gam hem ki chamuris v'tztaref oilesh kopah. The Yetzer Hara is not trying to get us to do big averos. That's not where the line of scrimmage is. I don't believe that there's somebody here in this Beis Medrash that if the Yetzer Hara came to him and said, I'd like to offer you a job, and I'm going to pay you $500,000 a year for this job. The only hitch is you have to be Mechal Shabbos 3 times a year. I don't think anybody in this room would think about the question for a millisecond. Maybe they think about how to get the guy to switch the day or something like that. But there's nobody here who has a Nisoyim, Baruch Hashem, at that level. That doesn't mean we don't have Nisoyim for Shabbos. But the things that are clear for us, the Yetzer Hara doesn't try to fight a losing battle. He picks on the things where we are weak, where we consider them Aveiros Talos. And that's where he wiggles his way. That's where he wiggles his way into our psyche. There's a Ramban in this week's Parsha. And in preparation for these words of Chizuk, went back and forth in my mind, should I say over the Ramban or not? Because it's very strong. And I asked Mechila in advance, I don't mean to ruffle anybody's feathers. I mean to ruffle everybody's feathers. But not personally. Person does an Aveira. There's a shirish. Somewhere or another, there's a shirish. Remez ki mishoresh mosuk lo yetze mar. Somebody who is sweet, something that is sweet, cannot bear fruit that is bitter. V'chol asher lavovo sholem im Hashem hanichbad. Whoever is sholem with Hashem, lo hear her klal ba'avodah zarah, and he never flirts with the idea of serving avodah zarah, he will never have children who will be like avodah zarah. Asks the Ramban on himself. Al tiksha alai bazeh min apostle Yaakov Cheskel, which seems to say mefurish, not like he say. And he says, Ki emes hadover, that which I'm telling you is the emes, v'soy gadol v'u'lo uchol lefarish bo. I'm not going to fill you in on how it jives with that passage. I heard once from Rav Gifter, and consequently I heard it from many people. And the question was about certain kinds of stealing that's permissible. not going to get involved in what he was speaking about. And he said as follows: it may very well be that according to Shulchan Aruch, it's 100% mutter. But if your kid grows up to be a ganav, you have no right to say, why me? The apple doesn't far fall from the apple tree. If you are pure, your children will be pure. Chazal tell us, a person says to a woman, Areat nekudeshesli al menashani tzaddigom, and he gives her money, and this guy is in the tabloids every day for a host of vile acts. The Gemara says, Chashina l'kedusha. Halacha, Vadai, Sofik. Why? Maybe he was Maharher B'tshuva. Him? Maharher B'tshuva? You must be joking. The Gemara is not joking. Because he was Maharher B'tshuva, once a tzaddik gomer, all of the Rishonim, Achronim, everybody's asked the question. There are components of tshuva. Because you're Maharher B'tshuva, that doesn't make you a tzaddik gomer. How do you reconcile this with the Rambam Hilchos Tshuva? That's not the discussion I want to share with you. Shmichel says something fascinating. And he quotes the Rishonim about this. A person is Maharher B'tshuva. That's the first step in the right direction. He says a chidush. Even if the person falls back and does the Aveira again right after that Hira B'tshuva. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu's makabel the Hira B'tshuva as a Ma'aseh Tov. Mitzvah gereres mitzvah, Aveira gereres Aveira. We had that switch. Person stops and he says to himself, I'm going in the wrong direction, I want to turn around. I hear her too. That pure thought puts him in the direction of becoming a tzaddik gomer. And each person in their own, thinking about myself, Hashem Yirachem, very far from a tzaddik gomer. Very far from a tzaddik not gomer. What about the tzaddik gomer? We're far from a tzaddik. And the person has the gumption to say, I dare say that I can make a change. That's unbelievably good. What we have to worry about is the Aveira Gereres Aveira. Aveira Gereres Aveira means something that we don't really look at as such a terrible thing. Rav David Soloveitchik, give him Arichas Yomim, he came to yeshiva one day very upset. And somebody said to him, what are you so upset about? So he said, I don't remember if he tied the wrong shoe first or he put on the wrong shoe first. He said, I was over in Halacha and Shulchan Aruch. How big an Avera is that? I said, what do you mean? It's a halacha in Shulchan Aruch. That's a wonderful story. But there's something even more wondrous about this story. I would never be nichshol with that Avera. You know I would never be nichshol with Avera? Who thinks when they put on their shoes? I would never know if I put on the right one or the wrong one. I was taught to do it right, so I assumed that I do it right. But to make that mistake, that means that it was a cognizant thought putting on his shoes. That's pretty amazing. How many of us think about when we put on our tefillin, where it's li'ikuba? Stop and think. It's the small actions, the inactions, that make the difference. Get on the right track. Just end off with a story which I think I mentioned once. But to me, it's very impressionable. And I've argued over this point many times. There was a chassid who did some atrocity of an Avera. And he went to the Rebbe to ask the Rebbe, what should he do for tshuva? And the Rebbe told him he should bench out of a bencher every time he eats. An American wouldn't have a problem with that, he just would never wash. But for some reason, that wasn't a havamin in those days. And the chassidim asked him, you let him off the hook so easy? What? If I would have told him to go into Golas, I would have told him, Sekufim, I told him all kinds of things to do. He would do them, he would finish them, and then he'd be back to regular life. Nobody around here benches with a bencher. Every time he picks up that bencher, he will remember his chet. We have to do things with foresight, to think about them, thinking about what we're doing. Because we're all doing the right thing. We just do it. Mitzvahs Anoshim Leimoda. The Yetzer Hara is always there. It's Chaim, one morning, he's already over 90, jumps out of bed and screams, "Shotgun!" He said, I got up and I was cold and felt weak. And the Yetzer Hara came to me and it said, you know, you're an old man. It's a mitzvah to be shomer on your piyut. And I was getting comfortable there in my bed. But then I realized this Yetzer Hara, he's older than me and he's out of bed before me. So I jumped out of bed and said, "Shotgun!" The Yetzer Hara knows. It's the little things that count. We have less than a week for Rosh Hashanah. And I'd like to give everybody a suggestion, each person their own. Twice a day, from now till next Friday night, Toshin Peyala. Twice a day, do an action that you stop to think about it for 5 seconds before you do. I'm just asking you, Sachakov, for 2 minutes. The next 5 days. The next 6 days. I guarantee you that will affect not only that act, but each action in each day. And we should be zoicha that this week should be shokol connected all of the weeks. And it should bring us not back to where we were when we were cleansed on Yom Kippur, Toshin Pei. It should bring us to the ultimate geula from each and every person's personal goals and Klal Yisrael's goals. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu should bashenk us all with the Shana Tov U'Berachos.